So Mark, you've watched the video and you've seen this guy come in just like an absolute wrecking ball and just blow these dudes up.
I want that guy as a friend.
Heck yes, right? I mean, we all want that guy.
Right.
Hey, these guys are whooping my butt, come and help me, right? But apparently they didn't even know each other.
Wow.
And the guy his sense of justice was such that I can't let somebody be hurt while I can do something.
What a quality guy.
Yeah, right. And I think we agree that, I mean, gosh, somebody who's got that kind of moral fiber, great. And I think from a tactical perspective, you put yourself at some risk because, I mean, it's three guys and nobody is Chuck Norris in real life. And so then there's some of that. But I want to ask you about legal stuff here, of course, because that's your bailiwick. Do you find that there's danger here for him legally stepping into this kind of encounter?
Well, there's no question about that. There's danger legally. And so, well, first, before you get to that, as you've pointed out, and I certainly agree with, there's danger for him physically, right?
Yeah.
Because you're taking a chance, and as you've pointed out, might be the kind of thing you want to talk to your loved ones. Hey, I'm going to be a superhero in certain situations, and I'm taking some risk. But legally speaking, there's some really serious issues here, actually. And again, I don't know the law in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, we're talking U.S. law.
Can't
right?
comment on that. I don't know what the rule is there. But, you know, in the United States, generally speaking, the rules are that you can defend a third party, right, to the extent they can defend themselves. You step into their shoes and defend them. So if they have a right to self-defense, you have a right to defend them. But you could be wrong about this. Right? Now just imagine the circumstances are slightly different here. Let's imagine the bad guy with the cap that he's wearing, the skull cap of some type he's wearing. What if he's an undercover police officer? And what if he's making an arrest?
Right.
He's got an arrest warrant, and the guy he's beating up is a really bad guy, and they get into this fight about it, and the two other guys standing there are, you know, part of the same team, and he has legally no right to defend himself. And this guy comes in as a wrecking ball, and he has absolutely the same rights to defend this guy that he has to defend himself, but this guy has no right to defend himself, legally speaking. In a lot of places, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I think the way that I understand that is there are some, Ohio being one in particular, that alter ego is that you have to know what they know. In other places, I think Arizona is one of them. I know Arizona is one of them. It's my reasonable belief of what the circumstances are.
You're right on the money, and you stole my thunder.
Oh, I'm sorry. Talk about that.
No,
please.
it's great. It's great that you're aware of that. But Arizona follows a minority rule that says, look, we don't judge it just by you have a right to stand in their shoes, which would, of course, assuming the facts were as I just laid out. Let's just say this is a legitimate arrest, not a self-defense type situation. Then if you stand in their shoes, you're in trouble, right? Because now you're going to get charged with interfering with a police officer.
Yeah, you could be in real trouble.
You're going to be in real trouble. But Arizona follows this minority rule, which basically goes by what you believed at the time, a mistake of fact. If you make a mistake of fact, and the mistake of fact is reasonable, then you're going to be judged by the facts as if they were as you believe them to be. So in Arizona, let's just imagine for a moment that this guy who comes in like a wrecking ball, what he's wrecking is a legitimate arrest warrant being served on a bad guy. In Arizona, he's going to be okay, right? Because he's going to get charged, and we're going to defend him and say, look, this guy, based on what he reasonably believed was doing the right thing, and he's going to be perfectly fine. But in another state that doesn't recognize that, they're going to say, look, you jump in at your peril. You don't have any more rights than the guy who you are protecting has. And he had no rights, assuming he was being arrested pursuant to an arrest warrant. So you're in trouble, and that's a serious legal risk that you take. So said another way, if you're going to step in the shoes of another person and defend a third party, you better make sure you're right about that, because if you're wrong, you can be in a big legal mess.
So I think in a lot of senses that sounds to me like unless I saw this egregious thing happen and I can be really sure that what I'm doing is morally good and I have to, I think of situations like, I see somebody just clearly abusing a child or an elderly person, somebody's beating an old woman down and stealing her purse or whatever. Okay, am I going to step into that? I probably have to personally. My moral code won't allow me not to.
Right.
If something so shocks the conscience that no good person would not step in. But if it's ambiguous, your better bet from the legal perspective is probably to be a good witness.
I think so.
And until there's clearly a deadly threat, and then you've got the physical threat to yourself when you're doing that.
Yeah, because you really might not know what's going on.
Yeah.
You may have it wrong, and it's easy to be mistaken about such things. I'm not saying you should never get involved. Sometimes it's the right thing to do, and I agree with you, and you take a chance. But, we generally, I say we, what I mean is prosecutors. Most prosecutors are pretty decent people.
Wait a minute, time out. The defense attorney just said most prosecutors generally are decent people.
Yes.
That's an interesting statement.
It's also,
from the
it's also a
defense
true
attorney.
statement.
Yeah.
To be fair about it. I've
Sure,
been
of
practicing
course.
25 years. My beef is not with most of the prosecutors. My beef is with the law that they're prosecuting, which I think we need to change. That's by far the bigger harm here. But I think most of these prosecutors would exercise discretion and say, look, if they really think you're dealing with a guy who's a good guy, who's trying to do what he believed was the right thing, and it turns out that it was the wrong thing, but he didn't have any way to know that, I think they're going to exercise discretion and not prosecute the guy. I think that's generally what you're going to find. Now, when you want to get into Good Samaritan laws, we recognize the same type of issue there as well. And we're talking here not as much about the self-defense, but more about somebody who's rendering aid, right? The doctor who sees somebody needing medical attention, or somebody who's rushing to help in an emergency situation. There you take a risk as well, but like in Arizona, in some other states, have put these Good Samaritan laws in effect where we've said, look, you can rest assured that if you're in this situation and you're rushing in to help somebody, even if you're negligent, you do something wrong, you're immune from being sued. However, if you're grossly negligent...
Yeah, you're reckless or something.
Yeah, if you're grossly negligent, you were really, really negligent, then you can be sued.
Yeah.
So the difference between ordinary negligence, which we could call ordinary unreasonableness, right? You tried to help out, you did your best, you did it below sort of the standard of care. You don't have to worry about being sued in that situation. But if you were very unreasonable,
right,
which was grossly negligent, then you could be sued. So when you do jump in a situation like this, yes, you're taking on legal risk.
So it seems to me then, I really think that for me and for mine, and what I recommend to people is really think this stuff out in advance. Really know where are your kind of bright lines in advance. Because if you have to kind of do that calculus in the heat of the moment, you're more apt to make a mistake.
You know what? I'm going to do the right thing, and that's what you're going to do, right? We're going to think it through, but at the same time, if a circumstance like this comes up, it's not exactly what you've been thinking about, and you're going to do the right thing. If somebody needs help, I'm going to say to hell with all this stuff, and I'm going to go in there and do my best to help them and deal with it later. I think that's the right thing to do, and for the most part, our laws and the discretion that prosecutors have there. If you're doing the right thing for the right reason, you're probably going to be okay.
Right.
But understand, you still have some risk.
You're always going to have some risk when we're talking about using any kind of force.
Yeah, I think the concept is in the law we're trying to encourage good people to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. That's what we're trying to do. And so that would sort of be the defense. And in most of these cases too, you're still going to be speaking to a jury, and you could still make the argument, hey, maybe this guy was doing the right thing and you should let him off. Although this brings up jury nullification, and we're abutting that issue, and that's a big topic. I think we've maybe talked about it before, so I worry a little. That's an example of the wrong rule, in my opinion. But I think for the most part, I certainly don't want to discourage good people from trying to help out in emergency situations.
So there you go, guys. Make sure that you've done this homework ahead of time. Think this stuff through. Have kind of an idea in mind, and just recognize there are times that you're going to take a risk, both for your physical health and for your legal future. Better make them smart. Marc, thank you so much.